Good evening. As many Doctor Who fans, there is a surprising lack of Doctor Who in the archives. There are stories that are completely missing, there are stories that are partially missing. But, suffice it to say, everything from the War Games onwards is complete in the archives. Except one. Now, what was it? Shada! Yes, that was just for me. Anyway, Shada, the uncompleted Season 17 story written by Douglas Adams, has been announced as part of the Legacy box. Now, there is some controversy over this, which I shall go into. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, Shada was due to be the final story of Season 17, and should have been the cap for the Graham Williams era the way Talented Wang Chang was for Philip Hinchcliffe. It didn't happen. Due to an industrial strike, the story was left half finished. I believe they'd finished all the location footage in Cambridge and the first of 3 studio sessions. As such, since 1979, the story has been left in an incomplete state. There have been many ideas on how to use this footage, most obviously in the 5 Doctors, where it was used to represent the 4th Doctor when Tom Baker declined to appear. There was an idea in the 6th Doctor's era, I believe, where Colin Baker would tell the story to Perry and it would cut to the existing footage. Since then, since the series had ended and of course been reborn, there had still been other ideas, one of which I will get into a little bit later, but one was the BBC Big Finish collaboration of an audio drama / webcast, which was released in, when was it? I think it was 2002? 2003 it was. Just in time for the 40th anniversary. Yep. Since Tom Baker had declined to appear, and until recently declined to appear in Big Finish at all, the role was filled by Paul McGann. This is a good adaptation. The webcast is admittedly very basic, but it's a good representation of the story. It was the best that we had for the longest time. Earlier this year, Gareth Roberts adapted the story into a novelisation, which generated a lot of interest. And yeah, especially considering it was like I think it was the first novelisation of a classic Doctor Who story for. God, well, it's the first novelisation, definitely. Since, I think the last novelisation of a Doctor Who story was Scream of the Shalka, which we won't go into. But regardless, it was the first classic Doctor story, pretty much since the new series started. I don't have the book, but I do have the audio CD here, read by Lalla Ward, with K9, played by John Leeson as always. Well, not always, but mostly. Anyway, this is good. 11.5 hours of pure joy. And you can get it fairly cheap if you look around. But there is another version of Shada, which I will now explain. 1992. BBC Video. Tom Baker in the Museum of the Moving Image, basically describing, and I mean basically, what happened in the missing scenes. I mean, literally like a sentence, 2 sentences. Shada deserves more than that. Shada is a very, very complicated story. You know, well, I mean, it's written by Douglas Adams. He doesn't do simple. The problem is, that is what we are getting in the Legacy box that is coming out, I believe, February or March next year. Yep, we're getting the 30 Years in the TARDIS, more than 30 Years in the TARDIS documentary, which is fantastic. I love that documentary. I'm made up to see it on DVD at last. And we're getting that version of Shada. We're also getting the Paul McGann webcast, but it will only be playable on PC and Mac. Which you'd think, well, okay, fair enough. At least we're still getting, a couple of versions of Shada. There is a better version of Shada out there. Ian Levine, who was the unofficial continuity advisor in the early 1980s, and who was instrumental in making people aware of and indeed saving a lot of the missing episodes. Most famously the first Dalek serial, which he saved from destruction on the very day it was due to be burned. Now, he has taken it upon himself to fund a reconstruction of Shada, animating the missing sections, with as many of the surviving cast as possible, the only exception being Tom Baker, which was due to financial reasons, I believe. I think, he couldn't afford Tom, which, But, yeah. So he'd created this version, which, from all accounts I've read, have said it is amazing, and a true worthy version of Shada. The best we will ever get. He offered it to the BBC. He gave it to the BBC. They're not interested. They don't want to know. I am flabbergasted, quite frankly, that the BBC will just turn down this offer of a complete version of what could have been one of Doctor Who's greatest stories. And he's not even asking for financial compensation. He is not even being he is saying, look, if there's anything you want changing, let me know, we'll talk about this. If you want Tom in it, if you can pay for him, fine, I'll put him in. There's a lot of reasons why people think this has happened. One that I think, which might be wrong, is that Ian Levine can rub people up the wrong way. He is opinionated. He doesn't suffer fools gladly. Now, I'm not taking his side. I'm not going against his side. I'm just giving what I have observed. I might be wrong. Please feel free to correct me if you think so. I think he is doing what he thinks is best for the fandom. And I think he has gotten fairly frustrated when people have disagreed with him. Like I say, I'm taking the middle ground here. I'm not going one way or the other. Except in the fact that I think this version of Shada should be released. This should have been on the DVD. And it's a real shame that it isn't. That's all I've got to say on this. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, either way, let me know. I've said my piece. I think that in this case at least, Ian Levine is right. I mean, he did a great job with the reconstruction of episodes 3 and 4, Planet of Giants, The Crisis and the Urge to Live. They were included. I don't think they were as important as Shada. And yet, they were included and Shada isn't. From what I've heard, from everyone who has seen this that I've heard their comments on, they said this version of Shada is fantastic. A lot of people have said, oh, we'll just put it up on YouTube, just do this, just do that. And to his credit, he has said, no, it's got to be an official release or not at all. He had a unique position in 80s Doctor Who. He was there as an unofficial advisor. He has had a unique relationship with the BBC. He doesn't want to jeopardise that, and I respect that. If I was in his boots, I would probably do the same thing. But basically, I think his version of Shada should be released. Let me know what you think.